Let's start with these images of some floods that have been reported over there in Dubai. Well, this has been going on for several days now. Actually, it's already the second week with heavy rains in that part of the world. Another situation that draws attention is this attack that took place in the Mediterranean. It's the first time that Ukrainian intelligence has attacked a tanker from the Shadow Fleet in neutral waters of the Mediterranean Sea. There's a point here. Do you see how the conflict is spreading, how the war is expanding? The tanker Kundil was hit by aerial drones, which reportedly caused critical damage. Now, this ship can no longer be used for Russia's purposes. And well, as I said, this is part of the strategic advance that Ukraine is making to stop the war by pausing Russian oil movement. On the other hand, this image is striking, where on a plane, well, they have to get off. In this way, there was no passenger staircase available, so after hours of waiting, the passengers decided to jump. Without even having the typical slide, what they call the chute, let's say, well, they didn't even have that, so they just had to jump to the ground, and that's how they were getting off that plane. I insist. It's in the Congo. These huge protests are also drawing attention, and we're starting to see these protests become more and more intense right now. There are tens of thousands of people flooding the streets of Lithuania. And the thing is, in Lithuania, the government has been gradually aligning itself more and more with Vladimir Putin. So the people reject this movement and are calling for democratic resistance. Be careful with that topic. Another issue that also draws attention and is important is this message. There, Vladimir Putin appears, in which they tell him to wink if he knows about the existence of extraterrestrials, not to confirm the existence of extraterrestrials. With this wink, well, apparently he blinks at the person. He doesn't wink, he blinks. Well, that also draws attention today. Well, it's part of this, well, a public interview that they did with Putin today. By the way, this also stands out. This is in Chile. It's not North America, no Northern Europe or Asia. Christmas Eve in Chile, well, in Ocon, Nevada, this also stands out. Today, we're going to be paying attention to see which part of Chile it is. They sent this to us from there, and I appreciate the comment. A blackout is also being reported, this one in Rostov, Russia. We'll tell you about the blackout that's happening in the United States. By the way, it's also hit hard over there. And so we're going to keep talking about what's happening in the world. How have you been? We're broadcasting live. Thank you so much for joining us. So we're going to be here chatting, talking about what's happening on the planet. And to start off, I think we should go with some information, right? Today. By the way, a little while ago, there was a global outage of Glover that affected thousands of websites. The classic 502 error appeared. I'm sure they'll report it. The technical team is analyzing the intermittent failures, including the second one, in a way so forceful from this company that, well, it draws attention. What kind of hacking or what's going on? It is once again experiencing service interruptions related to error 502, which affects various websites. What this page does, for those who have knowledge of website creation will know this topic better than I do. But it's a company that basically what it does is clone your page so that when your server goes down, they allow you to have like this kind of clone. So for the public, the page never goes down, right? Because it's very easy for it to be interrupted. Like if you suddenly have a lot of traffic and suddenly it crashes. So with this, it helps to always keep your page available, right? It's a service that a lot of medium-sized sites use, all kinds of pages. But when this fails, which is what it's made for, to protect you so your page doesn't go down, well then you start getting errors and more errors and more errors, and this has been happening in different parts of the world. They're reporting errors on a lot of pages because of Clover going down over and over again. There have been several in recent months, right? So what happened with that Mediterranean attack I was showing you a moment ago? It draws attention, and let's focus on the details because this case is really interesting, especially considering that this is the first attack of its kind. And maybe we're seeing that attacks are going to start happening at another level. I mean, targeting Russian interests. But in another region of the world, we're talking about the Mediterranean. Spain is there, Italy is there, the northern part of Africa is there, and even Israel, which also has a connection to the Mediterranean. It's this whole area. We'll get into the details first, then go to the map. The Security Service of Ukraine, which is Ukrainian intelligence, carried out an unprecedented operation with drones against an attack, which is part of the Russian Ghost Fleet used to evade sanctions. The attack is launched from about 2,000 kilometers away from Ukraine. This draws attention. I insist. How will the war spread? Let's check the map to see. Here is Ukraine, the front of the battles, here on the border between Russia and Ukraine. But the Mediterranean is this, right? All of this up to here? All this area is the Mediterranean, and there is a connection with the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. The Black Sea is the coast with Ukraine, right? And is there a connection through this passage in Turkey? Yes, here it connects, and it's possible to go, let's say, from the Black Sea to the Sea of Turkey. No, that's important too. Here it is. It's around here because there it is. There's a crossing from one side to the other. That's where all the cargo ships pass through. Now, the attack is happening now in the Mediterranean Sea, marking the first occurrence. The operation was carried out by the Security Service of Ukraine, specifically by the elite unit called Alpha, using aerial drones. According to intelligence sources in Kiev, citing the Uncreform agency, the attack took place in neutral waters of the eastern Mediterranean and managed to critically damage the oil tanker, which was rendered unusable. The vessel Comandera of Oman was not carrying cargo at the time, which is what the Ukrainian authorities highlighted regarding the situation, that there was no ecological risk, because they are making sure with the attacks that there is no ecological risk. This is the fourth attack on these vessels, the first in that area. That was the week before last. You may recall there were multiple attacks in the Black Sea, including on oil tankers. Also, they were empty, thinking that if they sink or something happens, there won't be a very serious ecological effect. That's also going around. Anyway, let's move on to other matters. What's going on with the blackout in the United States? What's happening with the 13 Atlas? What's going on with the warning? Now, it's really about war against Venezuela. From Donald Trump towards Venezuela, warning that there could possibly be a war. We'll discuss this and other topics, so let's move on to important matters. Major blackouts are being reported across the United States. Check out all the states affected right now. Well, I mean, it's affecting practically 500,000 people right now in the United States. They don't, no, not people, but customers. I mean, customers. A house has no electricity, but 4 or 5 people live there. I mean, right now there are millions of people who don't have electricity at this moment in the United States. And this is shown by Power Outage, which is this website that shows exactly how the electricity situation is in the United States in real time. Yeah, so it's really tough. 571,000 homes right now. I mean, 500,000 homes, including businesses and everything, don't have electricity. Let's discuss what is known about this topic. But to begin with, let me tell you that it's unusual to see the effect be this big when it comes to climate phenomena, because it's a climate phenomenon or whatever is causing it. It had already been warned by the same ENOA that there was a possibility of power outages. But I didn't think it would be this much. It's just strange to see it so much in the most affected state. It's Colorado, which is this one here. As you can see, it's literally colored red, but the state itself isn't that color. It means there are between 100,000 and 500,000 customers without electricity. Right now, in Colorado alone, there are 100,576 customers without power. After that comes West Virginia, Connecticut, New York, Virginia, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Montana, and other states. Let's discuss the current situation. But first of all, let me tell you that this is because of a powerful winter storm that we had already mentioned here, a winter storm that is already making an impact. Well, just take a look at this. And they estimate that without electricity, there would be about 1.5 to 3 million people affected. This 596,000 electricity customers, which are now 571,000. So it's gone down a bit, meaning the power is coming back in some areas. But just a moment ago, there were 596,830 customers without electricity. Washington, Oregon, and Idaho are also experiencing blackouts, and this is obviously part of the expected storm. What's going on? Is this related to the blackout or blackouts? Well, the winter storm that's hitting Washington, Oregon, and Idaho is bringing winds, watch out, of up to 180 kilometers per hour, much higher than what had been forecast. Here we told you that the gusts had arrived and that they thought they would happen again. Today, gusts up to 144 kilometers per hour have been reported, with some reaching 180 kilometers per hour. Obviously, this causes power poles and trees to fall. Yesterday, we saw an image where multiple trees were falling. Well, now this phenomenon is hitting this area. Let's see in real time how the winds are right now. And here, it's not stopping. It's really intense. First, in the northeast of the United States and Canada, this phenomenon is hitting really hard. Now, these are literally hurricane force winds. I mean, we're talking about some places already reaching around 120 kilometers per hour, over 100. This phenomenon is currently hitting Oregon and Washington and causing the most power outages. It's not just a cold phenomenon, but also one with pretty intense winds. Just check out the phenomenon that's happening right now. Yes, there it is. Let's refresh the page right now. It has already extended this far, both here and to the east. This is the closest I have to, let's say, around 11 more or less. This is the latest update we have. By now, it has extended much further into United States territory and will continue advancing in this way. This is the forecast. So what are we seeing? Well, more than a storm, it's some really strong blizzards. There are gusts of up to 180 kilometers per hour, for example, in Washington, but also in other regions like Snoqualmie Pass, up to 132 kilometers per hour. The National Weather Service confirmed and warned that similar gusts are affecting multiple areas. In Paradise, on Mount Rainier, and at Whittle Blake Island Air Base, they say there are also reports of 140,000 customers currently without power, who are not yet counted in the Power Edge report. So, in a little while, we might see that report grow. Oregon blackouts. Well, the winds are really strong right now, so would it be logical to expect more blackouts? So, keep that in mind. If you're listening to us, well, maybe we need to be a little patient with this issue if you're listening to us over there. In Oregon, they are also facing widespread blackouts, especially in the Willamette Valley and the Portland metropolitan area, where companies like Portland General Electric and Pacific Power reported massive outages. Rural areas also suffered from fallen trees and structural damage. Idaho. Although the number of affected users was lower, the damage was particularly significant in the northern and western regions of that state. Recovery is being hampered by the difficult terrain and persistent bad weather. How do you fix this right now? Yes, the weather is harsh, but they're trying. Strong wind warnings are currently in effect throughout the entire region. They complicate repair crews' work, and the authorities are prioritizing the restoration of critical infrastructure and densely populated urban centers. The cities are the priority, obviously because of the number of people affected. Now, yes, that's the protocol, let's say right now. The storm doesn't come alone. It brings heavy rains, leaving the ground saturated and creating perfect conditions for falling trees and massive power outages. However, the outages that happened a few days ago, do you remember, December 17th, were mainly caused by the wind, not by the flooding. And today, the same phenomenon is happening again. Obviously, there are reports of school closures, public office closures, and the authorities have issued warnings to avoid contact with downed power lines and unnecessary travel. It's better not to go out. I mean, only go out if it's really necessary, and try to stay at home right now if you're in these extreme conditions. According to the United States Meteorological Service report, the storm system will continue moving across all the Great Plains and even across the Great Lakes. All of this is moving in this direction. And here, there are already quite a lot of winds. According to the reports, there is a forecast for more blizzards in the coming days and even snowfall, as we mentioned yesterday. Yesterday, we reported how the snowfalls are coming in the next few days, and all this is going to keep spreading, even reaching the border with Mexico. Possibly, maybe we might even get some of it on our side, so let's stay alert to this situation, right? It's really hitting the weather hard, isn't it? The blackouts. We'll check on them before moving on from this topic to a final update to see how things are going. We're watching. Look, 571,000 people or customers without electricity. Let's refresh the page here live. 571,000, 582,000. I mean, that's it. Just while we started the report, this update. Over 10,000 customers lost power in the past 8 minutes. I mean, the problem isn't going away. On the contrary, it's spreading. And I'm telling you, the blackout issue is extensive. Look, Texas too. Check it out. How many have lost power if 12,000 customers are without electricity? It shows me here Colorado, which is the one with the most. It's Colorado. It has, let's update it, but it's Colorado. It's 100,721. Here it is. Look, you can see Colorado clearly. Virginia is in second place. Connecticut with 56,000, New York with 46,000. And there you go. Right, there you go, there you go, there you go. And let's look at it all at once. There it is. Look by state. West Virginia, Colorado, Virginia, and event source. Sales energy. It's better not to organize by state or company or we'll never finish. New York. It even shows the exact areas where the issue is happening, like Massachusetts, right? No? Well, I mean, we're not going to go into that much detail, but it's pretty serious. Alright, let's move on to other important news from around the world. Hey, well, 3 and Atlas keep surprising us, and let's get into the details of what's happening in that regard. That's good. This is one of the images that was shown a few hours ago. When it got to that point, well, it happened at night. It basically happened around midnight. Was that more or less when Atlas got closer to Earth? Right now, it's already moving away, and on the third Atlas, surprises us again. This time, not only with images, but also it was possible to capture it better with tools on Earth and in space to determine its chemical characteristics, its speed, the size of the nucleus, and that way understand a little more about what dynamics this phenomenon has from space. From the space station, this image was captured, which I think is one of the most beautiful, one of the most spectacular ones we've seen. Well, publishing now. Look, this is published directly. I just want you to see it. That's all. I just want you to see it. Here it is. This is the International Space Station's page, the confirmed page, let's say, not the verified one. I'm saying this because I want you to see this. Yes, I mean, the tail is impressive. I mean, at this height, with that size of tail, obviously you say this is everything. That tail, well, it's supposedly made of material, right? Of little pieces of ice, of things that are melting there, so this whole tail is huge. And why is this important? Because at this point, the back should have disappeared. I mean, this is obviously important. Now, just so you can estimate the tail is, you can estimate it's about 1 to 1.5 million kilometers. It's a topic that, well, we'll have to wait for scientists to confirm. But anyway, it's really tremendous. And the distance from which we're seeing it to get an idea of the size of this whole phenomenon, the distance is 274 million kilometers from Earth. That was the closest point at which this image had been captured. Here are several spectacular images. The truth is, there it is. It's not just another image. Here's another image. It's already on the horizon. You can see the Earth obviously because it's the space station, but it's rotating and you can see the Atlas 13 spinning from different angles. There it is, that's all. So, well, there will be more images throughout the afternoon, and now we'll be watching. I think today is going to be full of images. And hopefully, later on, at least some university observatories and such might reveal more things, more information about what's happening. At the moment, there isn't any publication talking about a new anomaly. There are some details, for example, about the tail, about the size of the tail, but that still hasn't been confirmed. So let's wait until we have the data confirmed, and then we'll talk about what's happening with the 13 Atlas. Another very tough, terrible situation is this individual who showed up over there in Taiwan who has what's called a bladed weapon. I mean, a knife, something like that, and he started throwing smoke bombs at people. People really surprise me, and when they see something like that, people don't react. They think it's a performance, that it's a show. I don't know. I just don't know. People don't realize what this person is doing. I mean, people are walking almost normally there in Taiwan. And this individual unfortunately killed 4 people and injured 4 others. Let's see. The mayor says, here I have the report. He says, at least 9 people were injured according to the mayor of this area of Taipei, who says that 4 of them are in serious condition. He had a bladed weapon. He was using smoke. The suspect was hospitalized after he jumped. Apparently, it's not clear whether it was to take his own life or for some other reason. But you know, one of those guys, right? Something's wrong with them, you know? They've got something in their head, something happens to them, and they start attacking people. But people get close and just walk around like normal, right? I mean, you say he's carrying a knife, he's setting off smoke bombs. It's not going to be anything good, right? Huh? I imagine that, well, they have no idea. I don't know what they think, right? Maybe everyone would react the same way, right? I don't know, but it does catch my attention. Well, people's calmness gets a little thrown off. But no, they don't react. I find that very curious. Another thing that stands out today is that more images keep appearing. This time it's in Italy on Elba Island. There's this flood that's been hitting hard, and it's already caused some damage. This flood is being reported, I insist, on this Italian island called Elba, okay? Another image that stands out today is that President Zelensky has arrived. This is for a visit to Poland, not to Warsaw, where he will have a meeting with the Polish president, Karol Nowotny, and other high-ranking officials from Poland. Their neighboring country is one that is concerned about the situation in Ukraine and warns that this could spread to Poland. That clearly causes concern in Poland. Another issue that we still have pending and that we are keeping an eye on for the community watching us in Honduras is, well, the National Electoral Council of Honduras has already started the vote count. This happened yesterday, and they are counting the ballots. The elections are proceeding despite the Honduran presidency's attempt to suspend them. It seems that the elections will be respected and the results will be honored, so that's one thing. I hope for good news for Honduras because there was the temptation to cancel the elections, and that, well, is practically a kind of coup d'etat. I mean, why? If you don't win the elections, do you say, oh, then they don't count, right? Because there were some issues or something. Well, it looks like things will move forward now. So, this has a positive turn, and let's hope that what people wanted to vote for is simply respected, right? So, that will also be important, and let's move on to other interesting matters happening in the world. First of all, let me tell you that they are raiding it. Homes of key deputies close to Jair Bolsonaro, and they reportedly seized approximately just in their, let's say, homes, $70,000 in cash. The Federal Police of Brazil carried out searches at the homes of Sostenes Cavalcante, the head of the Liberal Party in the Chamber of Deputies, and Carlos Jordi, also a deputy from the same party, suspected of embezzlement and hiding public funds. The operation, authorized by Judge and Supreme Court Justice Flavio Dino, is part of the corruption investigation. Well, there's a huge cleanup of politicians going on in Brazil. We'll see what happens. But yes, it's quite a big deal, isn't it? It's an issue that has escalated tremendously. By the way, they're also recognizing the hero from Australia, the one who managed to stop and take the weapon from one of the terrorists who was shooting. People are given a check for 1.1 point. What is 161? $6 million, 1.6 million United States dollar. Yes, this is the person, already well recovered. He might lose a hand or part of a hand. They're trying to save it. He is from Syria. He is a Syrian who lives in Australia and who faced him with leg injuries. He confronted a terrorist and took his weapon. People began donating money to help him recover since it would be very expensive. The hospitals for the treatment of his injuries, and they expected $300,000. I think that was the idea, to cover everything that needed to be spent at the hospital. And they reach 1616651. 650,000 United States dollars, which is about 2 million and some Australian dollars. According to reports, it's 1.5 or 1.6 million United States dollars. Besides being a hero, besides being visited by some politicians, well, honestly, we need more heroes. By the way, others too. There were two other elderly gentlemen who also confronted the terrorists. Two gentlemen. They lost their lives after confronting them and trying to take their weapons, but failed and were killed. There were many heroes, not just him or us, who lost their lives. Also a police officer. The same officer who took down one of them. I mean, he took down the father and the son from about 45 meters away with a pistol. He is the one who took their lives. He is the one who, let's say, ended up taking out these two individuals. What? That's another topic. Doesn't this catch your attention? Let's move on to more important matters. Donald Trump says that it's possible there could be a war with Venezuela, that this situation can't be ruled out in a turn of events. Well, Donald Trump was saying that no, that there wasn't going to be a war, that no, more. It was about drug trafficking here and there, but now it's taking a different turn. Donald Trump does not rule out a war with Maduro. The President of the United States warns that oil seizures could intensify and did not rule out a direct armed conflict with Venezuela. Donald Trump. Now, today, December 19th, well, he leaves open the possibility of an open war against the dictatorship of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, he stated during an interview with National Broadcasting Company News. When asked directly about this, he says, "This cannot be ruled out, dismissed." He spoke directly and confidently, which also stands out. Donald Trump said his administration will keep seizing oil, linked to the Chavista regime under the accusation that they finance drug terrorism. In fact, he says 28 attacks on vessels have already taken place, with more than 100 deaths according to the figures that have been revealed. In that interview, Donald Trump did not make it clear whether he intended to overthrow Maduro. It draws attention, he says, and he makes a statement that caused uncertainty. He says, "He knows exactly what I want. He knows it better than anyone." Meaning that Maduro knows exactly what Donald Trump wants. But he didn't say he knows exactly what I want. He knows it better than anyone. He didn't say. When asked if those actions could lead to a war, Trump says, "No, I discuss it. I repeat, if Venezuela challenges the United States, more maritime blockades will follow. And if they are foolish enough to sail, they will return to one of our ports," he says. Also, well, this issue, this movement they're making is obviously also generating not only an extensive movement, but the biggest, the largest one. But it won't be just towards Venezuela. They're also trying to stop all illegal substance trafficking. Well, that's also part of what's happening. But let's move on to other matters, because there's a bit of everything. Right now, it's striking that Iran would be, well, in the process of nuclearization, so to speak. Work is being done at a nuclear site that had been attacked by the United States in a very intense way. And this, well, on one hand, honestly, isn't surprising, right? But it draws attention because really no one is talking about it anymore, right? This site A nuclear development site is active according to what the satellite images show. They have raised alarms in the international community since Iran has resumed full activities at a key nuclear facility that was attacked during the war in June. The war at 12 days, it's a plan then that it's not clear where Iran is heading with it, but that it's active. It's active. It's, he says, a pilot fuel enrichment plant. Radioactive at TANS, a key site in Iran's nuclear program. The report comes from Institute for Science and International Security, which is the Institute for Science and International Security. It has detected newly installed panels on the plant's anti-drone structure. This measure could be hiding internal movements while equipment and sensitive material are being recovered from within the debris. Well, something is happening, but what exactly is happening? That's what we don't know, right? Meanwhile, in another message given today, Vladimir Putin does not rule out, he says, peace with Ukraine, but he also says as long as, first of all, the funds that Brussels has are not blocked, and also that there are elections in Ukraine. It's a series of demands where you think, well, you invade and then you basically demand everything in your favor, right? Basically, that's the thing here. He doesn't rule out, he says, progress or negotiations with Ukraine, but he claims that Russian troops, according to him, are advancing along the entire line of contact with Ukraine. A topic that has been proven time and time again. This year, they advanced just 1.5 kilometers. Progress for the whole year, but at the cost of thousands of lives. And this, well, that's what he didn't say in that comment. Another issue that also draws attention and is becoming increasingly relevant is that the crisis happening in Gaza is still a crisis that hasn't ended. The United Nations today. And that's at least not bad news, let's say. Isn't it that from now on, the end of the famine in Gaza is being declared? I mean, there's no famine anymore. Careful, this doesn't mean there's no hunger, malnutrition, or other issues, but famine, the most severe case, is what I'm referring to. There's no more food, that's already ruled out. I mean, now there's enough food, at least to survive under minimal conditions. More than 1.5 million people will need sustained international support over the next few months in the enclave to basically reactivate normal life in the area. I say normal in quotes, but not really life as it was. The specialized organization classified food security as integrated in these phases that they ensure. They emphasized that despite the improvement recorded after the ceasefire between Hamas and Israel declared on October 10, the food emergency, they say, persists. There is no longer famine, but there is a food emergency, this organization assures. Another issue drawing attention today is that there is a tremendous fuel shortage over in Cuba, an issue that has caused the blackouts to become even longer. Almost 60% of the island will be in the dark today, Friday. The combination of breakdowns and lack of fuel is making the situation worse for millions of households. Up to 58% of the Cuban population will experience simultaneous blackouts this Friday during peak electricity demand hours, as part of this deep energy crisis that the country is experiencing today. A combination of fuel shortages and breakdowns is worsening the situation. Today, Friday, a combination of breakdowns and fuel shortages will cause households to experience simultaneous blackouts. On Friday, during peak electricity demand hours, the combination of breakdowns and fuel shortages will be worsening the situation. Of today, Friday. The combination of fuel breakdowns will be worsening the situation for households. Of today, Friday. The combination of fuel breakdowns will be worsening the situation for of today, Friday. The combination of breakdowns today, the combination of fuel breakdowns will be worsening the situation for households. Friday, the combination of fuel breakdowns will be worsening the situation for households. Today, Friday, the combination of fuel breakdowns will be worsening the situation for households. Today, Friday, combination of breakdowns affecting households today. A combination of breakdowns due to lack of fuel. It will be making the situation worse for millions of households. It will be making things worse for households today, the breakdowns, the lack of service. Today, it will affect households. Today is a combination that will be making things worse for households. On Friday, fuel breakdowns in households. Today, Friday, the combination of fuel breakdowns will be making the situation worse for households. On Friday, the combination of fuel breakdowns will be making things worse for households today, Friday. The combination will be making things worse on Friday. The combination of fuel breakdowns will be making things worse for households today. Households. Friday, multiple breakdowns worsening things for households. Today, Friday, the combination of fuel issues will be making things worse for households. 100%. It depends. I mean, in order to survive the war, because it turned into that, what Putin did when he saw that his plan with Ukraine didn't work. When he saw that it wasn't 2 days or 2 weeks as expected, then they made an economic move. They said the economy was going to collapse. Well, the only way is to create an economy based on war. So, everything's about war, militarized, right? Or is the country's survival about being at war? If the war ends, the economy collapses. It would take, according to what economists estimate, about 5 to 10 years to shift that war economy and transform it into something else. Yes, it's very complicated right now. Right now. What's next for Russia is nothing else. There is no other way. There is no other option. I don't know if it's clear, but I'll gladly repeat it. There is no other option for Russia except war. If anyone thinks this will end soon, in a day, month, or year, they're wrong. It won't happen. If the war with Ukraine ends, another will follow with Europe or someone else. The war with Russia cannot end. Period. There's no way. There might be a pause. Maybe things calm down for a few months, but the war has to go on. There are too many people there who depend on it. Is he going to eat to live? They keep producing more ammunition, which keeps getting used up, along with their missiles. Because if not the economy that it implies, then well, is that a total regime change? That could be an option, but as long as Putin continues the war, he'll keep targeting Ukraine, Europe, or anyone else, right? That's the point that maybe isn't fully understood. It's an economy 100% focused on that. That was the big risk. That's why they told him, hey, don't take that path, because if you go that way, you have no other option but to stay in conflict. From here to the real thing, let's say, you can't transform the economy, right? How long does it take? The fastest? 5 years, but normally it would take 10 years to finish transforming again. Going back to an economy based on other types of products. No, that's not just a concern for Europe. That's a concern for China. That's a concern for Kazakhstan. That's a concern for all the countries around them. They don't like to see this because when a country depends One of the Russian generals said this yesterday. He said that when a Russian soldier takes or steps on another territory, that territory becomes Russia. No, that's the phrase this Russian general says, and that's the mentality they have. Oh, so if I show up and step on your territory, it becomes mine? So that's the approach they have? If that's the approach, well, if I were the neighbor, if I were Poland, and it's part of NATO, if I were Estonia or any of those countries, well, I would obviously be worried and busy getting ready. And they're not ready. I mean, if there's a war right now, what you're saying is that they couldn't handle Ukraine, so they can't handle NATO. The point is that, I mean, if they could really wage war, but on a large scale against the Europeans, and if they could do it right now, I mean, it's been difficult. Ukraine, yes, but that's also true. Consider Ukraine's characteristics, such as its territory and size. About how they prepared for this, that it's a country that, well, has had problems with them since 2014. But here in Lithuania, in Poland, in other countries, haven't they really had a war in a long time? They have supported NATO missions in some places, but they don't have real war experience. And Russia does. Then, yes, I mean, what it struggled with in Ukraine might not be the same in other NATO countries. I mean, it could enter NATO and tear them apart. And especially considering that the United States is currently active. The United States began withdrawing soldiers a few years ago. With Trump, troop withdrawal accelerated. You can see the United States stepping back more. And with Trump's comments, I think he would get involved in the conflict, but not at a major level. What Trump says in his latest comments is that he wants to see Europe be able to defend itself on its own. Right? He said, I'm not going to support, but he's implying, like, can't you put in the effort yourself? So, there are many reasons why NATO is obviously concerned. And of course, it's a powerful country. No, it's not about thinking it will be difficult just because it was hard with Ukraine. NATO, it's not like that. It's not like that. It may have many resources, but NATO doesn't have the experience that Russia has or the ambitions that Russia brings. So, just be careful there, right? Don't get confused. Greetings, says Leonardo. How have you been? Very good, Diana. How have you been? He sends greetings. Future wars will be fought over water shortages. Here, we pay a very high amount for water every 2 months. Hey, Jose, but that's strange, isn't it? Jose has a lot of water. I mean, they have good reservoirs, so it's weird. Where is the water going? Could it be shifting to technology in similar areas? There's plenty of water and capacity after all. California is such a wealthy state, which makes it seem even stranger to me, right? I mean, could it be that too much water is being used for technology and all this stuff? It just seems strange to me. And with others in drought. And so there's no shortage. I mean, there's no lack of water. Water isn't expensive, right? I'm not sure. It just seems curious to me, especially since it's such a rich state. I mean, also, I don't know how they use up the water, you know, those mega servers, those kinds of things that they're already thinking about taking to the sea and to space, just like that. I mean, it's too much energy consumption and too much water usage, so taking them to the sea or taking them to space, in theory, solves the problem or at least reduces it a little bit. He says, that's strange. I didn't know that Israelis were the ones who thought that way. He says, sorry, he says it doesn't have to be a soldier with them. What? Hi, how have you been? Leon? Very good, he says. No, Russia really hasn't been able to, and Russia is falling apart. He says that's true, and its economy is in crisis. I totally agree. It's really bad, and it hasn't been able to make progress. I insist more because of the characteristics of the kind of warfare Russia has, and the kind of intelligence Russia has, which is very good. I mean, it has a very high level of intelligence. This Buddha hasn't done an amazing job, but no, it's not Buddha. No, it's just decades, and it's decades of preparation. And we have to remember that, well, a large part of the intelligence the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics had was Ukrainian. So, well, they know about the subject, they know how people in Russia think, and this has led them to be able to respond, right? He says water is transparent gold. He also asks, how have you been? Greetings, how have you been? He says. He says they can't beat the master of strategic ambiguity. They're just a bunch of juniors going up against a chess master, he says. Draper is clearly very pro-Putin and always has been. Greetings, Draper. How have you been? But your little pro-Putin heart won't let you see maybe the hard facts, right? I'm not saying he's not a master of ambiguity or whatever, but that's a different claim. Praising him that much seems exaggerated to me, right? Greetings, Draper, he says. Sadie, how have you been? All good? Good morning, Sadie. What's up, Ruben? And couldn't Russia beat Finland or Poland? Finland would get direct support from 5 countries, while Poland would receive support from Germany and France. Well, out of all of them, I mean, Poland, I do think they could put up a fight. Definitely Poland, yes, absolutely. What I'm not really sure about is what Latvia, Lithuania, etc. could do. Now, the whole NATO is there, right? Any of those countries, Estonia, Lithuania, all those countries have the direct support of all of NATO, right? I mean, the problem here is whether NATO's direct support means the support of the United States or not. It's just that it's not clear anymore. Not clear right now with this Trump. Legally, they would have to operate. If the United States operates, that's a different level. But if they don't operate, well, then that would be strange, right? Now, the level of preparation that the Lithuanians and Estonians have, their level is very high, much higher than that of the Russians. Even without experience, they are much better prepared and have more advanced equipment. I mean, Russia, we've literally seen them in pictures. They're even riding donkeys, right? I mean, that shows a tremendous lack of resources, but if you let them grow for 2 or 3 years, it becomes a problem. I think it's a lot of commercial and residential building construction, but it could also be technology, okay? I mean, an increase. I thought it was the other way around, like it was almost stopping production. From what we've been seeing, with a lot of people leaving because of the cost, I thought maybe it was going to decrease. We'd have to check the data on how construction is going, but for me, technology has been a really big expense. Regarding the water issue, there are different calculations about how much is used each time you ask, for example, an intelligence. I mean, it's not wasted, it's just that a specific type of water is used, because wasting is something that disappears forever. But here it's not a waste, here it's, well, in any case, a use that now requires treatment, in this case, water treatment. That's why the concern right now for California, I imagine, is that if we don't have enough water, how are we going to have all these servers and all these things, right? He says Russia has struggled to maintain the war against Ukraine and can't open more fronts, much less that it would have to fly over NATO or Pacific airspace without being intercepted, says Darwin. How has Darwin been? It would be very difficult for them, and currently NATO is a considerable enemy. However, if they don't make progress, but the idea of progress isn't necessarily by land. It could also be with atomic weapons, because with the excuse of, oh, well, it's an existential problem, right? I mean, they want to wipe us out, and then the nuclear threat could start, right? So, starting from there. And if NATO isn't prepared, nuclear-wise, it's very complicated, so there could be a total war. In this case, it's just France, which has welcomed NATO and encouraged them to proceed. Let's go. To distribute the atomic weapons I have in different countries. It looks like it's going to happen. The plan is still on an open. If that happens, then it increases the probability, and you start to say, okay, that's it. NATO not only has significant strength, but also more soldiers and a much larger budget than Russia. Let's go in that direction. If we're more advanced, it has much more technological preparation and all kinds of things. The part that doesn't have the weapon, the nuclear weapon, basically, that's the real big difference. So if you have France's and the United States nuclear weapons, that's another difference. The United States seems to kind of hold back a little. That's why you can't just depend on the United States. At some point, they may say they're too far from the issue and won't get involved. And then you have to figure it out on your own, right? That's the problem I see with how things are right now. Speaking bluntly, because it's like, In the end, they left the leadership of NATO to the United States. They just left it there. And now that leadership is needed, well, it's not there. No, that's the reality, isn't it? And that's why France is the one that can step up in that sense, right? He says, Sadi, how have you been? He says, California was in drought for many years. You say that's correct. Is that right? Hey, well, let's go, right? We'll return later with updates on the world and the Atlas if new information arises. And in the meantime, we'll keep talking later. We might be live from outside. Hello, hope you're well. See you later.
Thank you for watching the PP News Live, where the events of planet Earth and outer space secrets are analyzed like nowhere else. Thank you for subscribing.